Welcome back to the Football League Paper podcast. My name is Matt Badcock. I'm joined by our editor, John Lyons, and our chief writer, Chris Dunlavy. Chaps, how are we?
Yeah, all good, thanks, fellas.
Not bad.
Chris, we're recording this on Tuesday. It will be out by the time we come out. We'll obviously have all the Tuesday night games, so we'll come on to that in a bit. But Chris, you're getting ready to wrap yourself up warm to go off to Middlesbrough Coventry tonight, so there'll be plenty about that in Sunday's paper. Make sure you subscribe to that. Make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. We really appreciate all the support. But we'll start at Swansea. New manager coming in. We obviously touched on this last week. Kim Hellberger, they were looking at, has gone to Middlesbrough, but Swansea, Vitor Matos. Chris, tell us about the Portuguese who's got the Swans job.
Well, he came out of left field a little bit because obviously, as everybody knows, it was pretty funny really, because in the press release from Swansea, they called him the outstanding candidate. But I think we all know who the outstanding candidate was, and he's now at Middlesbrough. So, they wanted Kim Hellberg, they didn't get him, so they had to cast the net a bit wider, and they've gone for Vitor Matos, who is 37, Portuguese, never played professionally, been a career coach, and he was all over the place. I think he worked in Japan, various places in Europe. But I think the first anybody really heard of him was when he joined the coaching staff at Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp. I think he was an elite development coach, so coach in the academy. And I think from what I know, he sort of, I think he got integrated into first team training quite a bit. And he was, so he was technically a elite team development coach, but really he was kind of in the first team, and he was there when they won the title the first time round. And then I think sort of the players, I was reading for some of the players he sort of helped develop were people like Curtis Jones and Jarell Kwanzaa and people like that. So I think he was well respected at Liverpool. And then when Pep Lijnders, so Jurgen Klopp's assistant, when Jurgen Klopp left, Pep Lijnders left, he went and took the Red Bull Salzburg job, and he hired Vitor Matos as his assistant. That didn't go so well. They left. Lijnders went to Man City, and Vitor Matos went to Maritimo in the Portuguese second tier. And prior to getting this job, he'd kind of got them up to third. Had a reputation for playing pretty good progressive football, for possession-based pressing, all that sort of stuff. And he got up to third, and Swansea made contact with him. Happened very quickly, and now there he is.
Good job. It's a good summary, John. And we kind of got past this point, of like these days where a good coach is a good coach, and if players will buy into that regardless of the sort of experience they've got as a player professionally and of the division. Do you think?
I think things have probably moved on now, so it's probably not as important now to have that sort of playing sort of background. That might get you a little way along. But I think now, if you're, I think it's quite common now to have these sort of career coaches and people that, as long as they've got the coaching skills and obviously the communication and man management skills. I mean, those are probably the most important things. I mean, towards the end of last week, it was announced that Swansea had agreed to pay the €1 million release clause in his contract. So, that suggests that they must rate him pretty highly to sort of shelled out that money. So, obviously, he's got a big challenge on now because they're down near the lower reaches of the division. I mean, they were doing quite well the early part of the season under Alan Sheehan, but things have sort of gone into a bit of a tailspin at the moment. So he's going to have to try and sort of get him back on form as quickly as he can.
It's interesting actually that the thing about whether players will have a guy who's not played before, but our regular columnist Guy Branston, he often talks about this sort of thing, and he says it doesn't matter whether the coach is from whether they've played in the Premier League or whether they haven't played at all. He says like players will test them. So in the early weeks, the players will kind of ask them questions and challenge them and kind of learn themselves whether a coach is kind of, whether he knows what he's talking about, and they'll try and catch them out and that sort of stuff to kind of, just put them to the test basically. He says like players will very, very quickly kind of work out whether someone knows their stuff or not. So I think it's kind of more that than the level they've played at.
Yeah, you can't kid players, can you? It's like they always say, when a young player kind of comes in, players can sort of see what they're about as well, can't they? And they just do suss it out quite quickly. But like John says there, Chris, big job. Obviously got whacked at the weekend by Bristol City, didn't they? There's it is all well and good coming in and putting in these new ideas, but the results do need to come quite quickly for their sort of current predicament as well.
Yeah, they're just in a little bit of a mess, really. I think if we spoke to Luke Williams recently, didn't we? And he went in there and he said the boardroom had sort of these two competing sort of factions who one wanted kind of the old Swansea way, one wanted a new a kind of new outlook and more modern data-driven outlook, and there's still a sort of lack of a coherent plan, for want of a better word there. It's difficult to understand what it is they're trying to do when you look at the players who've come in and that don't seem to fit any particular profile. You try and say, like, what's the style, what are they trying to do? When you watch them, it's kind of difficult to say. They played a bit of possession football under Alan Sheehan, but other than the start of this season, it kind of in recent weeks, it's kind of been passing without a great deal of purpose from what I've seen of them. And it's just, I think they need somebody to go in there and just unify the place and literally, go in there with a vision and an idea. And that should be coming from the top. And that's kind of the problem they've got, is there's a bit of a vacuum. And can Vitor Matos go in and sort that out? I think there's bigger problems there that need to be, with recruitment, with the expertise, with a bit of a vision. So, yeah, I would say it's a club in a little bit of a mess. Needs to be steered, needs to be directed, and whether one manager can change it, I'm not so sure. But got to wish him luck.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, Kim Hellberg was sort of being talked about. He's gone in at Middlesbrough. It's been confirmed, obviously, since we spoke last week, and you are going to that game tonight. But a tough one for him to sort of start with. But more generally speaking, an opportunity for him to kind of go in there and put his footprint on it as well.
Yeah, well, I do. He's actually not taken. They've said when on his unveiling, well, he hasn't been unveiled. They've sort of confirmed that he's taken over, but that he won't be in charge tonight. And we were kind of talking about this, remember, a couple of weeks ago. And you do sort of wonder, don't you? Coventry, do they really want to put him in for that one when there's every chance they could get whacked? Is it tactical? Why isn't he?
I was thinking that with big games like that, when you're playing whether it's if you're up there and you are up against a really good side, then, or even if you're not, if you're against a really good side, then why would you? And also long journeys. Why would you also do the long journey? I see managers take over after long journeys. I always think when they've sort of been down at sort of one end of the country or the other, and they magically turn up on Monday when they've got a home game that week.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I suspect it's a bit of a one where they've sort of kept them out the firing line a bit, and it's ostensibly it's because Eddie Vivash has organised the team and set the team up, and fair enough if that is the case. But yeah, it's been a long running old saga. I think it's all been held up by sort of work permit issues and that sort of stuff. But he will finally get in there after this game, and then we'll kind of see what he's made of. But it's a good job, isn't it? He's taken over a team that are doing well. They've sort of started to slow down a little bit, but the raw materials are there. They're doing all right. It's very tight at the top of the table, and if they do lose tonight, no one's going to bat an eyelid. If they win, brilliant. So I think he's taken over at a good time, whichever way you look at it. He's taken over in a much better situation than Matos is.
Well, this is it. And also, another manager last week, obviously Philippe Clement, who's went in at Norwich, John, and it's again one of those, I think we've talked about it before. It's one of those the big defeat to Birmingham where you can learn lots of lessons, and they're you can sort of dress it up as being a good loss because you see all the issues for yourself in the flesh. But a kind of a reminder that it is not easy going in at this sort of stage of the season when the championship is so sort of thick and fast. And obviously the game turnaround from Saturday to this week. I think we've got another midweek coming up in early December as well, haven't we? It's sort of all quite frantic at the minute, thick and fast, these games.
Yeah, I mean, probably little bit unfortunate for Philippe Clement and well, to be going to Birmingham first game up, because they've just started to really, hit their straps, and they'd obviously whacked in 4 goals in each of their previous 2 home games as well. So it's probably not the time that you really wanted to go to St Andrews with a struggling side. And then it was Birmingham's 150th anniversary celebration as well. The new stadium plans had come out. There was a sellout crowd. It was a baptism of fire for sure. And obviously when you have a game like that, you don't want to let in an early goal, and obviously that's what happened. And then they were sort of chasing the game from there on in, really. And Birmingham were just on a bit of a high. So it was definitely a tough start for him away from home. And yeah, as you say, he's probably seen quite a lot of things he needs to fix. Obviously, we've sort of touched on it, I think, before as well. They've got a couple of home games coming up this week, so they're going to be sort of quite important, because obviously that terrible home form they've had, if they could get a win under their belts at home, that would sort of probably put the whole club in a better feel, in a better position and what have you. So they'll be praying for that.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, we're recording on the day they've got Oxford, so that'll be, by the time it comes out, we'll know that result. But then they've got QPR on Saturday as well, haven't they? So yeah, a couple of big games. And Chris, you're going to sort of give us some interesting facts about a lad who scored 2 goals against them on Saturday, Marvin Ducksch at Birmingham, and you're writing a profile on him for this Sunday's Football League paper.
Yes, so I'll be honest. When he arrived, I didn't know an awful lot about him. I saw that he'd signed, and when it's an impressive signing when you get someone from the Bundesliga to come and play in. So he came from Werder Bremen for 1.7 million, or 2 million euros, so 1.7 million, and it's quite an impressive signing. But never thought much of it, because he arrived injured, so he didn't really make any sort of impact, and I'd sort of kind of forgotten about him really. And then he popped up with 2 goals on Saturday, and I sort of looked a bit more deeply into him. And I don't think I probably, like a lot of people in this country, I don't think I'd realised what a good player he is, and what a sort of coup this was for Birmingham to get him. Because I mean, basically over the last 3, he's this kind of crazy guy. So he's a bit like, I've said it in the profile, he's a bit like Ricky Lambert or Grant Holt, or one of these sorts of players who basically spent the majority of their career in the lower leagues, scoring a lot of goals, good players, but then, they had to get promoted themselves. Nobody was buying them. So he got promoted with Werder Bremen in, I think it was 2021, or 2022. And that was, and then he came into the Bundesliga, and ever since then, he's averaged sort of 17 goal contributions a season in the Bundesliga. And when I looked at his underlying stats and stuff, they're just sort of unbelievably good. So it's stuff like, he's created more shooting opportunities since the start of that 2022 season. Sorry, over the last 365 days, than any other player in Europe, and any other player in Europe's top 5 leagues. So we are literally talking Serie A, the Bundesliga, League One, the Premier League, and La Liga. He has created more shooting opportunities than any other player. He's level with Ousmane Dembele, who won the Ballon d'Or. And it's not just that. It's like, basically, it's sort of shots from free kicks. He's up in the top 4% of players. He's completed, I think, versus forwards, he's more long passes. All this sort of stuff. He is just like, his stats are literally like, it's elite level. He's up there with sort of all the best players in Europe for chance creation. It's all stuff to do with making goals. So he's this basically, I think he looks like a target man. That's what he looks like. He looks like a big hard case up front, but he's actually what he is. He's a hybrid number 9-10 who is essentially a playmaker, and he's sort of brilliant at set pieces. So he's created a ton of goals from set pieces, and just link and play, creating shooting opportunities, creating chances. He is just basically, over the last year, he has been one of the most creative forwards in Europe, and somehow he's playing in the Championship at Birmingham. And I think basically he's been injured, and he's been working his way back and working his way back and working his way back. And it's interesting because when John was saying about them having scored 4 goals in 3 consecutive home games, that started when he came into the starting lineup. That's when they started scoring all the goals, which I think is probably not a coincidence.
What I'm hearing is you're saying that Birmingham have got a future Ballon d'Or winner in their ranks.
There's one massive qualification, which is that he's 31. So I think that's possibly why.
A rage group. Lifetime achievement or something like that. Golden Oldie award.
But yeah, so I'm just really interested to see how he goes for the rest of the season, because if you can do that in the Bundesliga for a kind of mid-tier team, then what's he going to do in the Championship?
Yeah, John, and sort of further illustration of why Birmingham fans are so excited at the minute. Like you say, there's all the talk about the stadium and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of been on a bit of a bonkers ride, haven't they? The last sort of couple of years, and all the emotions of obviously the relegation straight back up, but a club that's really looking forward now.
Yeah, and I think there was a little bit of a feeling at the start of the season that they were kind of not really sort of hitting sort of top form, and they're sort of maybe sort of lower half of the table, and there was a little bit of frustration after obviously all the success they had sort of last season. But things do seem to be coming together quite nicely at the moment, and we were sort of saying there they've got quite a bit of firepower there. So if there are one or two players that aren't quite like Kyogo, who aren't quite sort of hitting their their best sort of marks, then they've got plenty of other players, they've got plenty of other options. Adam Stansfield's obviously got a couple of goals at the weekend as well. So that's one of theirs, probably their strengths, is they've got plenty of firepower, plenty of options if one or two people aren't sort of in their best moments.
Talking of things coming together, Southampton 3 wins on a spin now, smashed Charlton 5-1 on Saturday. Chris, it's surely the job's Tonda Eckert's to lose.
Must be. I mean, it must be. The reason, I mean, all the sort of smoke signals coming out with Southampton, with the owners kind of wanted him from the start, and they were prepared to give him a bit of time to get some results to see if he could do it. And I mean, now that they've won 3 on the spin, that performance against Charlton was the first half performance was as well as anybody's played in the Championship this season. I would imagine it's when you watch the goals and the interplay and the way they moved and cut through a team that's been defensively one of the best in the league, really most organised and solid. Then why? I don't think it's surely a matter of time until they give him it now. Surely.
Yeah, and John, as we say, there's a lot of we're still very early on in the season, aren't we? And there is that plenty of time. As you say, we've got big, couple of wins this week. Stacking up the victories before Christmas can be really important. They could find themselves actually in quite a good spot by that sort of that busy festive period in the turn of the year.
Yeah, and when you look at the way they're playing now, you almost do sort of it does make you sort of think, why weren't they playing like that earlier in the season? Because when you look at that team sheet and some of the players that they've got players who are very good Championship players, if not decent, could be decent sort of quality sort of Premier League players. So they're sort of stringing it together now. Obviously, confidence, momentum, they've got that on their side. There are plenty, as you say, of games coming up, so it could be a good opportunity. Look, Finazaz looked in decent nick at the weekend. Adam Armstrong has always been a prolific Championship goal scorer. Leo Cienza looks an exciting little player now. He seems to be coming to the fore. So they've got. And obviously Tom Fallow's on the wing as well. He was tremendous at West Brom. So if you're a Southampton fan, I think so it's going to be sort of potentially good fun going to watch them in the coming weeks, because they've got bags of firepower. Obviously that potential with the players seem to like playing for Tonda Eckert. So as you say, it's his to lose at the moment. So if he can just keep chipping away, get a few more results, then it might not be long before he gets the job permanently.
I think he's been quite smart, Eckert, as well, because when I was watching that game, the Charlton game on Saturday, we said earlier, didn't we, that sort of the problem was Southampton, they didn't really have that sort of classic number 9 since Ross Stewart got injured. And I think part of the problem was Will still wanted to play that way and tried to play that way, even though they didn't have one. And if you watch them on Saturday, they didn't really. They sort of played a system where Armstrong played centrally, but then dropped in, and everybody went past him, and he almost played as like a false nine. And I think it's been, it's quite smart when you've got, like you say, all the players you've mentioned, Azaz and Fellows and Scienza. When you've got those kind of runners and creators, then it kind of makes a lot of sense to play that way. So I think Eckert's been quite smart in using what he's got rather than trying to make do with something he hasn't.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, I have to take my Sheffield Wednesday hat off and come on to the Steel City derby on Sunday. Obviously, Sheffield United won that 3-0. Yeah, I don't really want to dwell on it, but what did we expect? Come on, Chris. It was.
What did we expect? Well, we should have. I mean, we did. We said it last week, didn't we? We said Sheffield United were favourites. They've got much better players. They're not in administration. It's the result that should have happened, really, isn't it? As sad as it is for Owls fans. It was always a kind of. I think it shouldn't do is detract from everything that's going on. And I think in a way it was a bit of a sideshow in some ways, really, because it shouldn't detract from the fact, there's been lots of bidders for Sheffield Wednesday. There's a lot of people showing proof of funds. Everything looks like a sale should happen relatively quickly. And everyone can sort of start looking at the future and, a future where derbies aren't just kind of almost dead rubbers where there's nothing counting on it for one team. So, it was a bad day for Sheff Wed, but I think in the wider context of things, it's come at a good time.
Yeah, I think obviously Wednesday didn't play well, but I think it's probably this is the culmination of the sort of the reminder of all that's kind of been left behind by the previous regime and what I've seen. There's been criticism of the players. I think it's a bit tough. A lot of them are stuck around when they haven't been getting paid. It's not easy. They're sort of, I imagine a lot of them are carrying all sorts of knocks and trying to just get themselves through these games and kind of, obviously Liam Cooper came in, but are they going to be able to get somebody else in? They need numbers, and it's, it's difficult. But I think it's just a reminder of actually kind of what's been left and the sort of the position that the club and the fans and the players have all been put in. I think I saw last week they were talking about how at Hillsborough they can't sort of essentially sell pints quick enough because the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure and the internet infrastructure isn't in the stadium isn't good enough to process card payments quick enough. So if you're trying to get a beer, it's taking you and there's also they put out sort of came out in the sort of the meeting between the club and the sort of various support bodies, and they've been buying laptops. People were working on laptops that are over 10 years old at the club that were couldn't load Windows 11, all that. So it just shows there's nothing has gone into this, the sort of the infrastructure of the club, and actually as you say, this is like hopefully soon a line can be drawn under this and look back as sort of those were the sort of the real low points of everything. And I think the administrators have come out and said there's going to be a difficult period coming up. There's probably going to be more points deductions in the very near future, and it is just about getting these bids getting to this preferred bidder stage.
That's the thing, isn't it? It shows you the scale of the task, is because all that stuff you've mentioned there, like that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. That's not even talking about like the crumbling stands and everything that's gone on there. Like, I mean, I think the asking price is like the proof of funds is 50 million, but you're probably looking at 3, 4, 5 times that to actually get the club to a point where it can challenge for the Premier League. I would have said. I mean, it's because it's everything. It's everything. It's a squad of players. It's a new stadium. It's the training ground.
Anyway, it's everything. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not going to be a case of coming. Let's pick up all the best players in League One. Next year, walk League One, and then be ready to sort of start pushing for the playoffs in the Championship. There's so much to do. It's it's just kind of just the result of 10 years of sort of a bizarre, just bizarre sort of things that people haven't seen probably.
Yeah, you obviously want to try and obviously get those. If you are going to get more points deductions, you want to get them to get them for this season, because you don't want to be starting next season probably in League One with negative points, and then having to come sort of trying to get through the pack if you're in there. And obviously Sheffield Wednesday have been in League One before, and it's not necessarily the easiest to get out of when you get stuck down there, because for a lot of teams it would be their cup final. So new owners want to go in and ideally sort of start with a clean slate, because they're going to have, as you say, they're going to have plenty of costs to shell out for the things off the pitch as well.
But before we get accused of bias, well done, Sheffield United.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Come on to that.
Hopefully they finally turned a corner and not just turned a square and got back where they started again.
Yeah, and Tyrese Campbell, good for him to get a couple of goals at the weekend, because we know he is he's a quality player, and if he can get his confidence, get his mojo back, then he's one to watch in the Championship for sure.
Yeah, I think that game did sort of show. It's hard to sort of fully judge. Sheffield United, have they turned that corner on it? But that sort of, they were so far above Sheffield Wednesday across sort of all areas of the pitch, really, and that sort of kind of a reminder of actually what a good squad that is, and that it went so close to promotion last year, like ridiculously close. In a parallel universe, they'd be in the Premier League now, wouldn't they? So
yeah, I think the reality is they should be doing that with a lot of teams in the Championship. Yeah. That's how good the team is. So at some point, I've said it all along, and I'm going to stick with it. At some point, that set of players has got to start stringing wins together. You would think, because it's just too good a team not to. But at some point.
And interesting seeing Patrick Bamford and Chris Wilder arm in arm at the end, singing. I think Bamford was repeating this repeat of the song that he sang as a Leeds player about Wilder with the Sheffield United fans. So they all seem to be enjoying themselves from that point of view. But yeah. I think there was a little bit where when Bamford came on and he just showed this little bit, where his sort of class, what he can kind of add to that side is like a part of through ball that he sort of put in, and you think, that's kind of what brought him in as well, isn't it? So
yeah, well, I spoke to him last week actually, and it was fun. It was a strange one really, because him and Wilder have both been reading off the sort of same script, I think, because I said to him, like, are you looking to sort of get back to your old form after all the injuries and stuff, and he sort of bristled at that a bit and said, like, the injuries have been overblown, it's all been badly reported, all this sort of stuff. And he basically said, like, the reason he hasn't been scoring or playing is because he hasn't been getting on the pitch because Leeds have been too good. But I think, at the end of the day, he does want to prove a point and show that he can still get 15, 20 goals a season as he was sort of 4 or 5 years ago when he got in the England team. But yeah, I like him as a player. I think he gets an unfair amount of stick because he lacks a bit of pace. And he's got a sort of unique sort of playing style where, again, he's not a true striker. People play off him, and he brings other people into the game and that sort of stuff. And I think that it often gets a bit overlooked. So, I think maybe he could be, whether they're going to play him with Campbell or how they're going to do it, I'm not entirely sure. But if you've got midfield runners and things, he's great to have on your side.
Yeah, definitely. Just talking there about League One, not easy when you go down to get back out of first time. Obviously, Birmingham did that last year. Cardiff now, John, top after beating Northampton 3-1 on Saturday. A big win for them. Yeah,
and I think they obviously they had that great start to the season, and then they've just been a little bit inconsistent in recent weeks. So to go and get to that 3 points at Northampton and go back to the top would have given them a nice boost. But as we've sort of touched on before, League One is one of those tables where it's very, very tight. So any team that can sort of string a few results together will be right up there. But I mean, there's no doubt Brian Barry Murphy is doing a good job there. He's even getting mentioned for other jobs. So they've got a lot of young players there. So maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe they're a little bit inconsistent, but certainly they've got some skillful players. Obviously, they've got lads there like Willock as well with a bit more experience who could probably help them guide those younger players. And Ruben Colwell's obviously a player who's obviously plays for Cardiff, played for Wales, and he's someone with a lot of skill who looks so he's got too much skill for that division. But it's can he sort of basically impose himself on the game a bit more, get more goals and get more assists that will obviously get him noticed even more.
Yeah, Chris, as John says, that division is ridiculously tight.
Yes, it's absolutely nuts, isn't it? It's like I was looking at it today, and the amount of sort of points. I mean, you look at it, and like I said, I think there's 11 points between the playoffs and the relegation zone. So you wouldn't really, if Peterborough or someone got going under Luke Williams, like it's not really that much of a stick. In a month they could be in the playoffs conceivably. It's mad, and you look at Bradford are second. I don't think they've won in 5 or 6 games. It's nuts. And then Cardiff are top, and if they lose a couple of games, they could be out with the top 6. It's just this sort of constant churn where anybody who has a good week can jump up 6-7 places and suddenly be in contention for the title. So it's a brilliant division. I mean, it's really boring. Sometimes you speak to managers and it's really boring because you ask them questions or players and they all talk. You'll have both had this. They always talk about consistency, and this stuff doesn't make interesting stories or good headlines. Like they're just going, "Oh, you've got to be consistent. That's the key thing." But it is true. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's why they talk about it so much. It's because it's so elusive. Because you're playing twice a week. You've got relatively small squads. There's injuries all the time. Like, you've got trips all over the place. You might have an away game. I must be talking to this Tony Mowbray talked about this at Blackburn years ago. I can't remember who they beat. They beat top of the league. Whoever was top of the league at the time. We're talking sort of 10 years, 7-8 years ago now. And they beat top of the league, and everyone was going, what a brilliant result. Can this be the springboard for your season and all that? And then I think they were away at Swansea the next day, or like on Tuesday. So this was like a Saturday game. On Tuesday they were away at Swansea, and he was really honest. He just said, "Well, yeah, look, we've done great tonight, but now I've got 2 days to prepare for an away game at Swansea. Like, all I can do really is recover the players. I can give them the bare minimum of tactical information, and because there's every chance we'll go there and get beat." And like they did. So it's just like that's kind of what happens, isn't it? And that's why it's so inconsistent. But it's brilliant. It's brilliant for us. It's brilliant not knowing who's going to win any game, and as well for fans of teams, because there's no dead rubbers, there's no mid-table. Anybody could do anything in that league, and it's very rare in any division you can say that's true.
Yeah, stressful for supporters. I mean, would you have had Barnsley, John, beating Luton 5-0 on Saturday? That was
no, definitely not. I mean, that was when we were in the office on Saturday, when we were seeing those sort of goals adding up to Barnsley's tally. I don't think we couldn't sort of quite believe it. So again, goes to sort of show that anything can happen in League One, and Barnsley will be delighted with that. Obviously, that result that should give them a massive boost in confidence. Davies Keeler-Dunn is always a player that we take notice of in the office as well. He seems to pop up quite regularly on Saturdays with goals, and I've seen him play before. He's a very sharp player, very decent finisher as well. So he's one that Conor Horan will be really relying on to bag some goals for him.
What's he doing in League One still? It's because it's season after season after season. There must be something in his profile that is deterring people, because everything all about his numbers are just so consistent. I don't understand why nobody's signed.
I don't know. I was annoyed that I couldn't put him in my fantasy team this week because it was a double championship week. I couldn't put him in there, so he's normally a mainstay of my side. But it's like you say, a few wins can change everything. Plymouth will hopefully feel that beating Port Vale on Saturday can be the start of something for them. Obviously, as always happens, you see a player leave in the summer, as Port Vale did with Laurent Tolage, and then he goes and gets the winner against you in the season. But a big win for Plymouth lifts them off the bottom and snaps that 6-game losing streak, John.
Yeah, and I think obviously Plymouth spent a fair chunk of money on Laurent Tolage, and he's up at the top of the League One scoring charts at the minute. So shows money well spent so far for them. But I think with the squad that they've got, the players that they've got, the signings that they've made, obviously Tom Cleverley and his manager, they shouldn't be right down there. So that was a massive result for them at Port Vale at the weekend. You have to obviously feel a little bit sorry for Darren Moore, because obviously Tolhaj was one of the players that helped get them out of League Two last season, and he would have been wanting to have him there this season, and if he had, they probably wouldn't be where they are now. So you have to feel a little bit sorry for them, but obviously they've got to try and sort of make the best of it. But as for Plymouth, they'll be hoping that's going to be the sort of maybe a bit of a launch pad for them to start, pushing away from danger. But obviously there's other clubs that wanted to do the same. As I think we just touched on there, Luke Williams has made a great start at Peterborough with the results that they've had, and beating Stockport 3-0 last Thursday was another great result for them. So it's those teams at the bottom. You want to get some form now and not get otherwise the danger is with other teams hitting form, you could end up getting stranded.
I always think the danger, like obviously with Tom Cleverley, I've spoken to Tom Cleverley a few times. I think he's a really nice guy. I hope he succeeds there. But I always think this is the dangerous territory. So clubs will often stick with the managers during like a long losing run, won't they? And then once you get that first win, it's like they want to see a corner turned. And so what you don't want to do at that point is go on another losing run, because that's sort of like that's when they're like, oh no, that was just a blip. I always think the first win's the dangerous one. You need a couple more to bolster it.
Or just keep losing.
Oh, just keep losing, yeah.
It's never going to turn around. Don't get rid of me. I've signed a new contract. I don't. Chris, did you see any of Peterborough chairman Darren McAnthony? He went on a fans podcast last week, and don't get many sort of owners doing that, do you? That's it's definitely worth checking out, because he doesn't hold back.
Well, I think it's Darren, isn't it? I've tried to get Darren for an interview many times, and you never do it, because I think he likes to speak directly. I think he likes to speak directly to supporters himself. He's got his podcast, hasn't he? But he's always pretty honest. But I like him. I like Barry Fry. It's like a very old school model of running a club. I like it. It's it's the chairman. He's got his director of football, and that's it really. And I remember when I spoke to Luke Williams, obviously, like the other week, that's what he was saying. He just likes the sort of the directness of it. He said, when you're at Swansea, you had to go around the houses to get things. And Peterborough's very simply run, but they do it brilliantly. They've never put the club in jeopardy. They've always unearthed these good players. And I know it's gone a bit wrong in the last sort of 12 months or so, but I think nobody can. Dara is a bit outspoken, and he probably does upset people from time to time, but I don't think anybody could ever sort of point a finger at the way he's run the club, because I think he does it very, very well, and has done for the best part of 20 years now. Yeah,
John, there can't be many clubs who've got a better record at how they've sort of picked up players from lower down, particularly out of non-league, and sort of the money they've generated off that, and the careers that players have kind of gone on to. Like I say, that get everyone, not everyone sort of lands and is a roaring success. That's kind of, I guess, the perils of football, but they've been so good at it, and people are kind of copying them now, really, aren't they? Because they've for years it sort of seemed like they were the only ones who were kind of having success doing that.
Yeah, I mean, lots of players sort of go through there, and Ephraim Mason-Clark was one of the players that you were speaking to Dean Brennan about Barnet sort of recently as well. They picked him up from there, so they have been brilliant at bringing players in, sort of shining them up, and then obviously then selling them on, and they sort of know where they are in the food chain, and what they need to do to be successful as a club. I mean, just with Luke Williams, I mean, obviously he's got a reputation for playing good football and stuff like that, but so one thing that's noticeable at the moment has been the fact that he's gone in there, and all of a sudden they've been able to keep a few clean sheets as well, because they've always tended to score goals, but sort of one of the things with sort of keeping them out has been a bit of a problem. So they've certainly sort of tightened up at the back. So you've got to give them quite a bit of credit for that, and obviously their fortunes are looking a lot brighter at the moment.
Yeah. That's me putting all my money on them conceding a hatful at the. we seem to be cursing everybody on the podcast, on this one and the non-league paper one that we do as well. We seem to whenever we sort of talk up, seem to go and lose after we've spoken about them. So we'll see. But In League Two, obviously, Christian Fuchs going in at Newport, and talking of a big job to kind of take on. A situation to be taken on, Chris, there for him. Obviously, a former Premier League winner, and we know all about his career. And I think, John, you were saying before, there'd kind of been a bit of sort of chat that he'd be kind of maybe in the stands earlier in the season and kind of watching games. But Chris, what do you make of this appointment and a big job for him?
Well, it's one to excite people, isn't it? Because as I say, a Premier League winner with Leicester, Premier League player. He was capped 70 odd times by Austria as well, so big name. What that means at the bottom of League Two, I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see. I always think you don't. If you can get a team organised and kind of grafting, I think you can. It's not that hard to get away from the bottom of League Two. Like you can normally, if you can put a little run together at that level, you'll be okay. So if you can get some sort of, I'd say, if you can get and he has said it himself, he says they need to go back to basics. If you can get some basics into the side and get them defending well and get them organised, which as a former left back, you would hope he could do. But yeah, as I say, he's not long retired. He went and played in the MLS after Leicester, and then he was being assistant to Dean Smith, who the former Norwich, Aston Villa, Brentford manager, who knows the Championship. So hopefully he knows his stuff. But it's a big job because Newport, they are what they are. They've not got a huge budget at that level. They've not got fabulous facilities. It doesn't matter who he is, really. Whoever went in there would have faced the same challenges, so it will be tough to keep them up.
Yeah, John, do you sort of admire him for taking a kind of a sticky job like that? Because it is the task is evident that's in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, to come into a team, sort of bottom of League Two is a tough ask for sure. And as we've sort of touched on sort of before in some of these podcasts, if you haven't got that sort of pre-season to sort of get your ideas across, it can make it even sort of tougher. Sort of he's coming in now, getting towards the end of November. I suppose the good thing from his point of view, he'll have about a month or so, have a look at the squad, and then he might be able to do a bit of wheeling and dealing in January. Obviously, I think Chris touched on there, they haven't got big pockets to splash out on money, but he might be able to do a little bit of business there. But yeah, you've got to admire him. I suppose if it goes well, then it will look good on his CV. But obviously, if things don't go well, it's not really going to help his managerial career. So yeah, so good on him for having a go, and obviously be desperate to get a first win as soon as possible, and just try and get a little bit of confidence and momentum going there. Because David Hughes obviously had a tough time since after taking over in the summer.
You wonder whether we would tap Leicester for a few loans as well. Maybe that might be one.
We've already been on the phone to them.
Yeah,
Hi,
guys.
Any tickets for the game? You need to come down and have a chat as well. Yeah, big job, and like you say, if you can, wins change everything in football. If you can get a couple of those, everything feels much brighter. John, we probably a good one to come to you on this one, because your old mate Andy Woodman, absolutely, Bromley continue to fly under him. I mean, how he doesn't get mentioned for jobs higher up, beyond me. What a job he's done there, unbelievable since he's gone in at Bromley in the National League. They've been to Wembley and won the FA Trophy, and then they've won promotion, and incredible record under him. In the automatic promotion places, 4th straight win, beat Salford 2-0 on Saturday. It's a remarkable story for everybody, especially Bromley fans.
Yeah, I've known Andy a long time, sort of going back to when I was working on local newspapers, and when he was the goalkeeper at Brentford. So I've known him a long time. Obviously it took Andy a long time to decide to go in as a number one. He was with Alan Pardew at a number of clubs, working as a goalkeeping coach and what have you. And obviously he eventually, after he had some time at Arsenal as well on the goalkeeping side. So
yeah, Newcastle.
So he eventually decided he wanted to have a crack at being a number one. Had a little spell Whitehawk quite a long time, quite a while back now, and then he's he's gone into Bromley, and he's done a phenomenal job to take them through from non-league. Well, obviously won the trophy, didn't they, against Wrexham? He's got them into the Football League, and obviously they had a very good first season last season, and now they want to try and build on that this season and try and get into the playoffs, or even go for automatic promotion. They had that win against Salford at the weekend, and now they're up to sort of third in the automatic slots. And I was talking to Nicky Kabamba, the striker, last week, and he's having a really good season. And obviously with him and Michael Cheek both scoring goals, that always gives you a chance. And I think that they're certainly a club that seems to be sort of heading in the right direction. And as you say, if Andy keeps kind of getting them those kind of results, then it won't be long before clubs maybe higher up the ladder start having a look at him as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think having been down there in their non-league days and seen kind of all the stuff that they've been doing down at the ground, and the development down there, they're kind of almost a blueprint for non-league clubs coming through. They've done so much sort of in the sort of infrastructure of the stadium, but within that, the sort of the offices, and they've got this huge bar in there and things that they sort of fill out on match day. And there's that sort of real sort of strategy behind their growth. But then Woodman kind of heading it up. And Chris, obviously, you've been at Newcastle and Arsenal, and as John was saying, Palace and top clubs, and he kind of seemed to come in almost with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, because he's ex-goalkeeper, maybe not sort of always respected as managers, and he kind of came out when they won promotion that he did feel kind of was sort of a bit miffed by how people had kind of questioned him, and that can be a big driver for a manager, because you're talking about a lot of these young managers who kind of coming in higher up that we've not sort of heard of, and Andy Woodman's doing it the other way, having to come up through. It's a bit like Dave Challen had to come up, come into the Football League through promotions. But it shows how there are some really good talented managers out there, working down the leagues as well.
Well, it shows you as well that the reverse of, there is a very modern trend to go for these, I guess Vitor Matos is the perfect example of people who are career coaches and who, they're in their 30s. That's all they've ever done. And, I think there is a bit of a fad for these younger guys. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are some very, very talented coaches, but I think, someone like Andy Woodman's a reminder that you shouldn't just, overlook someone because they're a bit older. Because, like I say, he did the hard yards. He did a lot of coaching. He saw football at all sorts of levels. And he's come in armed with all that experience, all that knowledge. And you're seeing the fruits of that now with Bromley. So I think, it doesn't matter what age someone is. It's what they've done and where they've been and what they've learned. And, with Andy, I think you're seeing that. You're just seeing someone who's comfortable in his own skin now, who knows what he wants from a team, who knows how to manage people. And, that's, like you said, it's the perfect fit, isn't it? He's like the figurehead of the club. He's the person who drives it. And yeah, you're seeing what happens when someone has that fully formed kind of education and isn't just, either promoted too quick or comes out of a Premier League club and hasn't done the kind of hard yards. Andy's like the antidote to that. So yeah, it's brilliant to see him doing what he's doing.
Yeah. George, did you used to ghostwrite the column for him or something like that? Was it?
Yeah, that's right. In the Hounslow Chronicle, when I was there, we used to have a chat. I think we did it every other week. We used to have a chat, and I think there was one month where he got the Player of the Month award as well. We on that, in those days, we used to do a sort of presentation before the game, and I remember it was about 5-3, and Andy came rushing over to get his trophy, and we took the picture and stuff, and then it was all a bit frantic. It was all a bit frantic, to be honest. And then the game kicked off, and I think he made a mistake in the first couple of minutes, and they were behind. And I thought, oh no! And I don't think the club were too keen for us to do that presentation just before kickoff after that. So no, he was always an extrovert character, Andy. He was he likes his wisecracks and his jokes, and I think maybe sometimes because of that, maybe people didn't take him quite as seriously as they should. But obviously, he's a real football man, and obviously his lad Freddie's gone on to be a goalkeeper in the in the Football League and with Preston and what have you, and done really well as well. So the goalkeeping genes obviously run in the family as well.
Yeah, I think that's another point, isn't it? Yeah, because he the way he is, people haven't sort of taken him, maybe didn't take him seriously. I think he sort of kind of felt that, and I think he was sort of, I say, chip on the shoulder, kind of felt like he needed to prove people wrong. But he's like kind of of that old school ilk as well. He turned up to the Non-League Papers Awards and he to win our manager, when he won our Manager of the Year, and he sort of came down and sat and chatted for everyone. Such a grounded bloke. So good to see them doing well, and like you say, other players who've I know Kamamba's played in the Football League before, but then done a lot of time in non-league. Obviously, Michael Cheek's been in non-league for donkey's years, scoring goals and finally getting his chance. So just good to see lots of people thriving down at Bromley, and where they feels like their journey is not over yet for sure, But well, chats, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing the results of the midweek games, and Chris, obviously, make sure you wrap up warm tonight at Middlesbrough, as we say, and we'll look forward to seeing that in Sunday's paper.
Chosen a bad week for me. Biannual haircut, am I?
Well, don't know how many you've got left there, mate. So you've got won't have to worry about that soon. Yeah, good to speak to you, chats. Always enjoy listening to your expertise and getting your thoughts on the game at all levels. And we'll look forward to seeing Sunday's paper. As I say, make sure you pick that up in the shops on Sunday. Subscribe. You can read it online as well. And subscribe and like this podcast. And we will catch you again soon. Cheers, chaps.
Cheers, buddies.